cannot moan in this decay and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Conquest of space is worth the risk of life.
Good afternoon, my name is Nicole Soto. I'm Avery Morris.
I'm Richard Pantoja.
And I'm Connor Darwish. When analyzing the question, to what extent has NASA's past and continuous innovations affected the scientific, medical, economic, and political aspects of American society, my team and I further developed the claim triangle, which essentially states that NASA, acting as a main protagonist, has resulted in scientific innovation as well as that of medical technology, which in turn has created economic benefits and political benefits, such as global cooperation and the ease of global tensions. With this, we decided that we would like to take these benefits and further promote them across the United States. By doing so, we're going to take NASA's current 0.5% annual budget and increase it to 2%, or half of what it was back in 1960, to further develop the scientific innovations and benefits that NASA has already promoted.
NASA's scientific innovation has led to the creation of many technologies that are used every day in American society. For example, we have LED lights, which are cheaper, more effective, but have a longer battery life than regular lights. We also have the microwave, which is faster and more effective than conventional cooking methods. And finally, we have rocket technology, which will allow for an increase in space exploration that will have a political benefit in America. NASA's scientific innovation has also led to the creation of medical technologies, such as digital breast imaging technology, which helps examining dense breasts and improve the ability to detect breast cancer. We also have MRI scans, which are less likely to produce allergic reactions from iodine-based substances that are used in X-rays and CT scans. And finally, we have 3D tissue imaging technology, which allows doctors to monitor tumors and cancer without exposing their patients to radiation.
Along with the innovations my colleague Richard previously mentioned, NASA has produced many technologies that allow researchers, physicians, and patients to better understand, treat, and heal from certain illnesses. Take into consideration microencapsulation. Microencapsulation processing system 2 experiment included encapsulation of anti-cancer drugs, magnetic triggering particles, and genetically engineered DNA. This experiment showed enormous results, retarding tumor growth 78% and regressing tumors 30% over a 3-week period. Another medical technology that NASA has produced is light therapy. Originally used in aiding the growth of plants, NASA has converted this technology into use for patients suffering from pediatric brain tumors, diabetic skin ulcers, burns, and oral mucositis. Magnetic resonance imaging is widely used in hospitals today. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory originally created this technology, which is now used in MRI machines. This uses powerful magnets and radio waves to detect the body for trauma to tissue. By seeing these tissue traumas, doctors are better able to understand and treat patients who suffer from them. NASA has also worked with many other countries to produce medical technology. Take into consideration the Canadarm. Canadarm was originally used in the International Space Station in partnership with the Canadian Space Agency to lift and move heavy objects. It is now used by the Muscular Dystrophy Association to produce prosthetic limbs. Water purification systems are also used on Earth, as they were originally used in the International Space Station, to provide third world countries with clean water, such as Mexico and Malaysia, who may not have it near them.
The scientific and medical innovations that my colleagues previously discussed have aroused for global cooperation as well as the ease of global political tension. We can see that in the 60s, President John Fitzgerald Kennedy had a discussion with current NASA Administrator James Webb. This document and these tapes were recently released to the public, and in it, Kennedy provides his true opinion of what NASA needs to become, where he states, "This is important for political reasons, international political reasons. This is, whether we like it or not, an intensive race. At this moment, President Kennedy just turned scientific innovation NASA into a diplomatic tool to extend and accelerate the American foreign policy political agenda, because at that time, we were in the space race or a part of the Cold War. And instead of winning the Cold War with weapons, we decided that scientific innovation was the way to end and win the Cold War. Through the booster and rocket technology that my colleague Richard previously discussed, we can see that this is what eventually led to NASA winning the space race. Starting in the late 50s with the Mercury rocket, we were able to achieve and get the first American astronauts into space. In only a few short years, with the budget of NASA, we were able to develop the Gemini rocket, which launched 2 men into space at single moments and allowed for them to stay in space for multiple days at a time. This Gemini rocket was later turned into the Saturn V rocket. The Saturn V rocket was able to carry 3 men to the moon 238,000 miles away on the historic voyage from the Earth to the moon. Such a voyage would lead to NASA and the Americans winning the space race. It would later cause for global cooperation when we signed the Outer Space Treaty on January 27, 1967. The Outer Space Treaty, pictured here, was signed between the Soviet Union and America and basically stated that NASA and the Soviet Union could not engage in nuclear war in space, the first step to global cooperation and global peace between our two nations that were existing in a Cold War. And we would see this peace practice in the Apollo-Soyuz mission on July 17, 1975. On this mission, the Soviet Union sent an astronaut to space, while America also sent an astronaut into space. These two astronauts met in space, docked their capsules, and shook in space, and the mission would later be called the greatest handshake in space, as it signified the end to the Cold War. This newfound coexisting global cooperation would later be turned into an increase of scientific innovation through our use in the creation of the International Space Station, where over 10 superpower countries came together around one singular idea, to create more scientific innovation within space. In this visual provided by NASA.gov, we can further see that across the world that there is so many parts to the International Space Station. Astronauts will launch from the United States, but they are trained in Asian countries, but the parts are assembled in European countries. This program has proven effective at bringing together the world around a singular idea and has progressed the American foreign policy agenda, as well as expand global markets.
Now, NASA was able to create new markets and new technologies thanks to partnerships with U.S. companies. And these technologies have benefited our society in many different areas, like health and medicine, computer technology, transportation, public safety, as well as consumer goods, environmental and agricultural resources, and industrial productivity. And NASA decided to name these new technologies spin-offs, as you can see right here. Some examples of these spin-offs are the ATM machine, the weather satellite, and artificial limbs like my partner Avery said. And these are used and have facilitated our lives on a day-to-day basis, due to the effects of medical and scientific innovations. Now, as you can see here on this diagram, it is basically showing all the money that NASA has put into every individual state, which has in turn boosted the economy of the whole nation. And the possible solutions that we could come up with was an increase in STEM programs and an increase in education in aerospace, because we feel that as many people aren't educated on the many benefits that NASA has had for our nation and the many innovations that they have created for us that we have today. But the best possible solution that we could come up with was an increase in NASA funding.
Our team decided that the best possible solution is to raise NASA's funding from its current 0.5% to 2%. This will allow for more medical and scientific innovations, which will allow for more political and economic benefits.
Throughout our research, our group discovered 2 possible limitations to our solution. The first being competition from private companies such as Blue Origin and SpaceX, and the second being competition from government-funded programs like FEMA, the Department of Health and Safety, and the Department of Defense. Despite these limitations, our group went with our solution because NASA has proven in the past how much innovation they can have and how much technology they can create with only a limited budget. If this budget were to increase, it would give NASA the opportunity to have more innovations, which will lead to more technological creations, which will end up benefiting American society. Thank you. What questions do you have?
Alrighty, last 4 questions of 2019 team project. Very exciting for me. We'll start over here. In the future, what changes would you make to your group norms, and how would you expect them to improve your team presentation, Connor?
I would like to increase our communication as well as set mandated practices for me and my team. All of my colleagues from Nicole to Avery have current jobs as well as myself. So finding a schedule to maintain was very hard, but I would like to increase the norm of studying practices and increasing our communication, because as Nicole previously states with all of us, you better text when I tell you to text. So I'd like to increase that communication and make sure that our team can effectively communicate our research goal.
All right, thank you. Avery, in what way did you improve your ability to work with a group because of this?
I was able to, like, if we had to meet a certain day, I would find time to fit in between school and my after-school sports, when usually I would just want to go home. And, yeah.
It's honest.
Yeah.
All right, now that you've finished the project,
Yes.
what would you consider to be a gap in your team's research?
A gap in our research would be when we're doing research in the NASA website, we found that the information was kind of outdated, and that definitely impacts our presentation because we're talking about the present and not what happened in the past.
Okay. And literally save the best for last. What was the strongest counter argument to your solution or conclusion that you identified, and why so?
So our solution was to increase NASA funding, but of course many people could argue that we could use that funding for something else that's more important. But we further explained that in our presentation that the increase of NASA funding would be good.
All right, thanks. You guys are done.